The morning my father called me about Beckett's wedding, I was sitting in my corner office overlooking downtown Seattle, watching the rain streak down the floor-to-ceiling windows. I almost didn't answer. His name on my phone screen always brought that familiar knot to my stomach, even after all these years. Kai. His voice was sharp, businesslike, as if he were addressing an employee rather than his son. You need to be at Beckett's wedding. October 15th. Mark your calendar. I leaned back in my leather chair, the one I'd bought with my first bonus. I'll have to check my schedule, Dad. That's a busy time for. There's nothing to check. His tone hardened. This is your brother's wedding, the golden moment of his life. You will be there. Golden. Even now, at 28, hearing that word associated with Beckett made my chest tighten. Growing up, everything Beckett touched turned to gold in our parents' eyes. His mediocre grades were showing potential. His failed business ventures were learning experiences. His cruel pranks on me were boys being boys. Dad, I have commitments. My job. Your job? He laughed. That dismissive sound I knew so well. What job could possibly be more important than family? You're still at that call center, right? They can spare you for a weekend. Call center. He still thought I worked at the place I'd mentioned 6 years ago, during my sophomore year of college. The college they didn't even know I'd graduated from. Listen carefully, Kai. His voice dropped to that threatening register I remembered from childhood. If you miss this wedding, if you embarrass our family in front of the Harringtons, I will personally make sure that tuition assistance I've been providing disappears. You understand me? Tuition assistance. I bit back a laugh. They hadn't given me a penny since I was 18. Every scholarship application, every late night working multiple jobs, every ramen dinner I'd done it all myself while they poured money into Beckett's failed ventures. I understand, Dad. Good. And Kai? Wear something appropriate. Rent a decent suit if you have to. I don't want you showing up in those shabby clothes you usually wear. The line went dead. I set my phone down and looked at my reflection in the dark computer screen. The Tom Ford suit I wore cost more than what my parents thought I made in a month. The watch on my wrist, a subtle Patek Philippe, was worth more than Beckett's car. They had no idea who I'd become. Growing up in the Mitchell household meant understanding your place in the hierarchy. Beckett was the son, and the rest of us were meant to orbit around him. My parents, Harold and Patricia Mitchell, had waited 8 years for their miracle child. When Beckett arrived with his golden hair and easy smile, they treated him like visiting royalty. I came along 2 years later. An accident. My mother once let slip during one of her wine-heavy book clubs. We were done after our perfect Beckett. She'd laugh to her friends, not noticing I was listening from the stairs. But sometimes life gives you surprises. Some surprises were less welcome than others. Where Beckett was tall and athletic, I was bookish and quiet. Where he commanded rooms with his booming laugh, I observed from corners. My teachers called me gifted. My parents called me difficult. Why can't you be more like your brother? Became the soundtrack of my childhood. When I brought home straight A's, they'd glance at the report card and ask why I couldn't be more social like Beckett. When I won the state science fair, they missed the ceremony because Beckett had a football game, a game where he sat on the bench. When MIT sent me early admission materials, my father threw them in the trash. Don't fill his head with impossible dreams, he told my mother. Kai's not meant for that kind of life. He needs to learn his limitations. But Beckett was meant for greatness. When he wanted to study business at Whitmore University, our parents took out a second mortgage. When he failed his first year, they hired tutors. When he failed his second year, they made donations to the school. When he finally graduated with a 2.1 GPA after 6 years, they threw a party that cost more than my entire college education would. The college education they refused to pay for. Community college is perfect for someone like you, my father had said when I showed him my acceptance letters. Practical, affordable, appropriate. I'd gotten into Columbia, into Northwestern, into Berkeley. He'd thrown every letter away. Beckett is our investment in the family's future, he'd explained, as if I were a stockholder requiring justification. We can't spread our resources thin. You understand, don't you, Kai? You've always been so. Independent. That's what they called neglect when it was convenient. So I became exactly that. Independent. Invisible. I forged their signatures on my Columbia scholarship applications. Told them I was attending Rayner Community College while I packed for New York. Worked 3 jobs to cover what scholarships didn't. Graduated in 3 years instead of 4. Summa cum laude. While they thought I was still struggling through an associate's degree. By the time Beckett was on his 3rd failed business, a food truck that served elevated hot dogs, I was getting recruited by tech firms. While he was moving back into our parents' house, I was signing a 6-figure contract with Nexus Technologies. But to them, I was still just Kai, the disappointment, the shadow, the son who worked at a call center and needed threats about imaginary tuition assistance to show up for family events. The wedding was 3 weeks away when the text started. Not from my parents, they'd said their piece through Dad's threat. No, these were from Beckett himself. Each one dripping with that casual cruelty I remembered so well. Heard Dad had to strong-arm you into coming. Classic Kai. Try not to embarrass yourself at the reception. The Harringtons have standards. Miranda says you can bring a +1 if you have someone. Big if, right? Lie 2. Miranda Harrington. Of course, Beckett would marry into old money. The Harringtons owned half the commercial real estate in Portland. Miranda was their only daughter, raised on private jets and charity galas. She was also, from what I'd heard through mutual acquaintances, sharp as a razor and twice as cold. Perfect for Beckett, who'd always valued appearances over substance. I was in the middle of a board meeting when the most interesting text came through. My phone buzzed on the conference table, and I glanced down to see Beckett's name. Need you to transfer $500 to my account. Wedding expense came up. You know how it is. I almost laughed out loud. My assistant, Jennifer, gave me a questioning look from across the table. I shook my head slightly and refocused on the presentation, but my mind was elsewhere. Beckett had no idea I could see his social media, despite blocking me years ago. Fake accounts were useful things. I knew about his mounting debts, the failed investments he'd hidden from our parents, the lifestyle he couldn't afford but refused to give up. I also knew the Harringtons were footing the entire wedding bill. So what was this $500 really for? That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I called my mother. Kai? She sounded genuinely surprised. Is everything all right? You never call. Everything's fine, Mom. I just wanted to check in about the wedding arrangements. Oh. Her tone shifted, warming slightly. Well, it's going to be spectacular. The Harringtons have spared no expense. 400 guests at the Rosewood estate. Miranda has exquisite taste, I'm sure. And Beckett? How's he handling the stress? She laughed, that tinkling sound that used to make me feel so excluded. You know your brother. Cool as a cucumber. Though he has been a bit scattered lately, working on some new business venture he won't tell us about. Says it's going to be his biggest success yet. Another venture. Another failure waiting to happen. But this time, he had the Harrington money to cushion his fall. Mom, has Beckett asked you for any money lately? For wedding expenses? A pause. No, why would he? The Harringtons are handling everything. Why do you ask? No reason. Just wondering if I should prepare a wedding gift. Oh, Kai. Her voice took on that patronizing tone I knew so well. Don't strain yourself. We know money is tight for you. Your presence is gift enough. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment, my penthouse apartment with its view of the Space Needle, and thought about that $500 request. Then I thought about all the times Beckett had taken from me. Lunch money in elementary school. My birthday cash in middle school. The laptop I'd saved for that mysteriously broke when he needed to sell something for quick cash in high school. I didn't send the money. 2 days before the wedding, I flew into Portland. First class, though I'd tell my family I'd taken the bus if they asked. I'd booked a suite at the Nines, but I knew I'd need to stop by my parents' house first. Appearances to maintain. The house looked exactly the same. Same faded blue siding my father refused to replace because it still functioned. Same oak tree in the front yard where Beckett had pushed me out of, breaking my arm when I was 7. He'd told our parents I fell, and they'd believed him. They always believed him. My mother answered the door, and for a moment, her face went completely blank, as if she couldn't place me. Kai? She said it like a question. You look different. I was wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. Nothing flashy, but quality shows. Her eyes tracked over me, confusion evident. Hi, Mom. She ushered me in, and immediately, the familiar dynamics reasserted themselves. The living room was a shrine to Beckett. Photos of him at every age covered the mantel. His trophies, most for participation, lined the shelves. There were 3 photos of me in the entire room, all of them family portraits where I looked like an afterthought. Beckett's at the venue with Miranda, she said, bustling around unnecessarily. Final preparations. You know how these things are. I didn't, actually. I'd never been included in any family event planning. Is Dad home? In his study. He's been stressed about the wedding costs. Well, not the cost exactly, since the Harringtons are covering everything. Just, your father. He likes to be the provider. His study door was closed, but I could hear him on the phone. His voice was strained, almost pleading. I understand the payment is late, but if you could just extend the deadline. Yes, I know it's the 3rd extension. The wedding is in 2 days, and after that, I knocked. Come in, he barked, hanging up quickly. He looked older. The last 2 years had added lines to his face, a slight stoop to his shoulders. When he saw me, his expression hardened back into familiar disapproval. Kai, you're early. Flight got in ahead of schedule. He looked me over, that calculating gaze I remembered. You clean up well. Borrowed clothes? Something like that. Good. Good. He shuffled papers on his desk, and I caught a glimpse of red. Final notices. Past due stamps. The rehearsal dinner is tonight. 7 sharp. The Harringtons will be there. Do not embarrass the family. I know, Dad. He studied me for a moment, and something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty? Maybe? But it passed quickly. Beckett's done well for himself, he said, though it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. This marriage will set him up for life. Set all of us up. All of us? Family rises together, Kai. When one succeeds, we all succeed. That's why it's so important you're here. The Harringtons need to see we're a united front. Successful. Stable. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Maybe both. Instead, I just nodded. I should go check into my hotel. Hotel? My mother had appeared in the doorway. Nonsense. Your room is still here. My room. The converted closet under the stairs that had been my space for 18 years while Beckett had the master suite-sized room upstairs. I've already paid for it, I lied smoothly. No refunds. They exchanged a look. The same look they'd always shared when I did something that didn't fit their narrative. The rehearsal dinner, my father repeated. 7 sharp. The Rosewood estate. Do not be late. The Rosewood estate was everything you'd expect from old Portland money. Sprawling grounds, meticulously maintained gardens, and a mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the English countryside. Valet parking. String quartet on the lawn. The works. I arrived at 6:58, having spent the afternoon doing something I probably shouldn't have. I'd made some calls, used some connections. The information I'd gathered about the Harringtons' finances was Interesting. But tonight wasn't about that. Tonight was about watching the show. The rehearsal dinner was in the conservatory, all glass walls and exotic plants. About 50 people, all looking like they'd stepped out of a town and country spread. I recognized some faces from Portland's society pages. The mayor's wife, 2 city councilmen, a federal judge, and at the center of it all, Beckett and Miranda. He looked good, I had to admit. The golden boy in his element, working the room with that easy charm that had always come naturally to him. Miranda was stunning in the way that money and good genes could guarantee tall, blonde, perfectly put together. But there was something in her eyes when she looked at Beckett. Not love, not even affection. Calculation. Kai. My mother's voice cut through the cocktail chatter. She was bearing down on me with someone in tow, an older woman dripping in diamonds. Mrs. Harrington, this is our younger son, Kai. Kai. This is Miranda's mother, Constance. Constance Harrington looked at me the way you'd examine a horse you were considering buying. So you're the other Mitchell boy. Beckett mentioned you work in customer service? Something like that, I said, taking her offered hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. How wonderful that you could get time off for the wedding. These call centers can be so strict about attendance. My mother laughed nervously. Kai's always been such a hard worker, so dedicated to his job. Admirable, Constance said, though her tone suggested otherwise. Beckett tells us you're still in school as well? Community college, wasn't it? I finished, actually, I said mildly, a while ago. Oh? My father had appeared, bourbon in hand. You finally got that associate's degree? You never mentioned it. Must have slipped my mind. Beckett materialized then, all smiles and brotherly performance. He clapped me on the shoulder hard enough to hurt. Little brother made it. Everyone. This is Kai, the family scholar. The way he said scholar made it sound like a disease. Still hitting the books while the rest of us are out in the real world. The real world, I repeated. Right. Miranda glided over, champagne flute in hand. Up close, she was even more perfect. And even colder. So you're Kai, she said, looking through me more than at me. Beckett's told me so much about you. All good things, I'm sure. She smiled, sharp as winter. Oh, absolutely. He says you're very persistent. Still trying to make something of yourself despite. Well, she gestured vaguely at me, as if my entire existence was self-explanatory. Miranda's being kind, Beckett laughed. Kai's been at the same job for, 6 years now? 7? Sometimes you just have to accept your station in life, right, brother? Acceptance is important, I agreed. Like accepting when investments fail, or businesses collapse, or when you owe people money you can't pay back. Beckett's smile flickered for just a second. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all, just making conversation. The dinner bell rang, saving us from further pleasantries. As we moved to our assigned seats, me at the furthest table from the head, naturally I caught Constance Harrington watching me with an odd expression. Suspicious? Curious? No, something else. She looked worried. The dinner was exquisite torture. 7 courses of subtle humiliation, served on bone china with a side of condescension. I was seated between Beckett's college roommate, a guy named Chad who wouldn't stop talking about his father's yacht, and someone's +1 who spent the entire meal on her phone. From my exile at table 9, I watched the main table. Beckett held court, telling what seemed to be the story of how he and Miranda met. Even from across the room, I could see it was heavily edited. The version where he was a successful entrepreneur, not a failed one living off our parents. The version where their meeting was fate, not a calculated move on someone's part. But whose? Harold Harrington, Miranda's father, sat at the head of the table like a king surveying his domain. He was everything my father wanted to be: powerful, wealthy, respected. He laughed at Beckett's stories, but his eyes never smiled. Occasionally, he'd lean over to whisper something to his wife, and that worried expression would flicker across her face again. During the 5th course, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You're Kai Mitchell? I glanced around the room, then typed back. Who's asking? Check your email. I opened my email app under the table. There was a new message from an encrypted address. The subject line was just 3 words. You should know. The attachment was a PDF. Financial records, transfers, loans, all in Beckett's name, but hidden under shell companies. The amounts were staggering. He'd borrowed against his inheritance from the Harringtons, an inheritance that didn't exist yet. He'd taken advances on business ventures that were nothing but paper. And the people he owed, these weren't banks. These weren't venture capitalists. These were the kind of people who broke legs over late payments. Excuse me. I looked up. A server stood beside me, holding a phone. Mr. Mitchell? There's an urgent call for you. You can take it in the lobby. I followed him out, aware of my parents' disapproving stares. In the lobby, he handed me the house phone. Hello? Mr. Mitchell. The younger one, I presume? The voice was female, older, refined. Who is this? Someone who knows what your brother has been up to. Someone who's been watching this disaster unfold for months. Tell me, Mr. Mitchell, do you care what happens to your family? That's a complicated question. She laughed, dry as autumn leaves. I suppose it would be, given your history. Let me be more specific. Do you care if your brother's wedding turns into a crime scene? My blood chilled. What are you talking about? The people your brother owes money to have run out of patience. They know about the wedding. They know about the Harringtons' wealth. They're planning to collect, one way or another. Why are you telling me this? Because unlike everyone else at that dinner, you're not trapped in the web. You could walk away right now and be fine, but you're also the only one who might be able to stop this. I'm nobody to them. The family disappointment. Are you? Check your bank records, Mr. Mitchell. The real ones. The ones your family doesn't know about. The line went dead. I stood in the lobby, my mind racing. Then I did what she suggested. I pulled up my investment accounts, my savings, my assets. Everything was gone. No, not gone. Transferred. To accounts in Beckett's name. The timestamp was 3 hours ago. While I was in my hotel room, someone had cleaned me out. Made it look like I'd given everything to Beckett. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Your brother needed collateral. You just provided it. Come to the wedding. Watch it all burn. Or don't. Your choice now. I didn't go back to the rehearsal dinner. Instead, I drove to the one place in Portland where I could think clearly, the 24-hour diner on Burnside where I'd spent countless hours during my brief visits home from Columbia. The coffee was terrible, the fluorescent lights harsh, but it was real in a way nothing about this wedding was. I sat in a corner booth with my laptop, doing what I did best: research. Diving deep into financial records, corporate filings, social media breadcrumbs. The picture that emerged was staggering. Beckett hadn't just borrowed money. He'd created an entire fraudulent empire. Fake companies with impressive names and no assets. Forged contracts with major corporations. Investment prospectuses for technologies that didn't exist. And at the center of it all, one massive lie. That he was about to inherit the Harrington fortune through marriage. But here was the thing, the Harringtons were broke too. Not obviously broke, not selling the mansion broke, but leveraged to the hilt, their real estate empire built on loans on top of loans on top of loans. The 2008 crisis had hit them hard, and they'd never recovered, just gotten better at hiding it. This wedding wasn't just a union of families. It was a mutual con. The Harringtons thought they were getting access to the Mitchell family's hidden wealth. Wealth my parents had always implied existed but never specified. My parents thought they were marrying into old money that would solve all their problems. And Beckett? Beckett was promising everyone everything, hoping to stay one step ahead of the collapse. My phone rang. Jennifer, my assistant. Kai, I'm sorry to call so late, but there's been unusual activity on your accounts. Multiple authorization attempts from Portland IP addresses. Our security team blocked them. But, Jennifer, I cut her off, relief flooding through me. Those investment accounts, the ones that showed transfers. What transfers? Everything's exactly where it should be. Your portfolios are intact, but someone's definitely trying to access them. Should I have legal get involved? The relief turned to ice. If my money was safe, then what had I seen? I pulled up the bank app again. My accounts showed normal balances. No transfers. No unusual activity. Someone had spoofed the entire thing, fed me false information to make me think I'd been robbed. But why? Another text, this time from a number I recognized. Beckett, where the hell are you? Dad's losing it. Get back here now. Then another, from my mother. Kai, please. Something's happened. We need you. And from my father, 2 words I'd never seen him type. Please come. I drove back to the estate, my mind spinning through possibilities. The valet was gone. The string quartet silent. Police cars sat in the circular drive, their lights painting the mansion in alternating red and blue. Inside was chaos. Guests clustered in confused groups. My parents stood near the conservatory doors, my mother crying, my father's face gray with shock. Beckett was against a wall, 2 officers flanking him, his golden boy smile finally, completely gone. Miranda sat in a chair, still perfect, still composed, watching everything with those calculating eyes. Kai! My mother rushed to me, thank God. They're saying Beckett. Embezzlement, my father said flatly. Fraud, wire fraud, securities fraud. They have evidence of everything. I don't understand, I said, though I was beginning to. A woman approached us. FBI, by the look of her badge. Mr. Mitchell? Kai Mitchell? Yes. We need to thank you. The financial records you provided were exactly what we needed. My family turned to stare at me. I didn't. Your digital fingerprints are all over the reports that were sent to us 3 hours ago. From your laptop, your IP address, your encrypted email account. She smiled thinly. Though I suspect you already know that. Kai, Beckett's voice cracked across the room. What did you do? But I hadn't done anything. Someone had used my digital identity, my presence here, as cover. Someone who knew I had the skills to find this information. Someone who needed a patsy who wouldn't be destroyed by the revelation because they had nothing to lose from this family. I looked at Miranda. She raised her champagne glass slightly. A tiny toast just for me. Of course. She'd known everything. Known about Beckett's debts, her family's financial situation, the house of cards waiting to collapse. And she'd needed someone to knock it down in a way that kept her clean. The FBI agent was still talking. The Harringtons have been very cooperative. Miss Harrington especially. She came to us weeks ago with concerns about Mr. Mitchell's business dealings. This is insane, my father said. The Harringtons' Harold Harrington is my son's business partner. Was, the agent corrected. Mr. Harrington is also under arrest. We've been building this case for months. Your son just gave us the final pieces we needed. The next 12 hours were a blur of sirens, handcuffs, and headlines. Society wedding becomes crime scene. Harrington-Mitchell union exposed as fraud ring. Golden boys fall from grace. By dawn, the full scope was clear. Beckett and Harold Harrington had been running parallel cons, each thinking they were scamming the other. The people Beckett owed money to? They were Harold's associates, hired to create pressure. The inheritance Harold was promising? Contingent on loans he could only get with the Mitchell name attached, a name he thought carried weight because my parents had spent years lying about their financial status. It was a circular firing squad of fraud, and everyone had pulled the trigger at once. Except Miranda. And, by extension, me. I found her at the hotel bar at 7 in the morning, looking like she'd just come from a spa, not an all-night FBI interrogation. "Buy you a coffee?" I asked. She smiled, that winter smile. "I think I owe you one. Several, actually. You used me. I gave you an opportunity. There's a difference. You destroyed my family. Your family was destroying itself. I just controlled the demolition." She signaled the bartender. "2 coffees. Make as Irish." We sat in silence while the coffee arrived. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning since I'd pieced it together. Why me? Why make it look like I sent those files? Because you're the only one who could have. The only one with the skills, the access, and most importantly, the motive. Everyone knows how your family treated you. Nobody would question why you'd finally had enough. So I'm your scapegoat. You're my hero, actually. The neglected son who exposed corruption at the highest levels, who chose justice over family loyalty. Your reputation will be stellar after this. My family will never forgive me. She studied me over her coffee cup. Did they ever forgive you for existing in the first place? She had a point. What about you? I asked. Your father's going to prison. Your family fortune is gone. My trust fund matured when I turned 25. Separate from the family assets. Grandmother was paranoid about exactly this sort of thing. She stood, smoothing her skirt. I'll be fine. Better than fine, actually. The wronged bride who helped expose the truth. I'll have a book deal by the end of the week. Movie rights by the end of the month. And Beckett? Her smile turned genuine for the first time. Beckett will get 5 to 10, minimum. More if they find everything. There's more? There's always more with men like Beckett. They can't help themselves. She walked away, then paused at the door. You should check your bank accounts, by the way. Your real ones, not the spoofed versions someone showed you last night. I pulled out my phone, logged into my accounts. Everything was there, just as Jennifer had said. But there was something new. A deposit. 7 figures. Consider it a consulting fee, Miranda called back. For services rendered to the Harrington estate. All perfectly legal. All perfectly documented. You did, after all, help expose a massive fraud. The door closed behind her, and I sat there, staring at my phone. In 24 hours, I'd gone from the forgotten son to the family whistleblower, from invisible to infamous, from 6 figures to 7. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. How could you do this to us? Then my father. You destroyed everything. I deleted both without responding and ordered another coffee. This time, definitely Irish. The call started immediately. Journalists wanting exclusive interviews. Lawyers offering to represent me. Family members I hadn't heard from in years, all wanting to know if it was true had quiet. Overlooked Kai really brought down the mighty Beckett? I turned my phone off and went home. Not to Portland home, but real home. Seattle. My apartment. My life. But even there, I couldn't escape it. The story had gone national. The wedding sting, they were calling it. My photo, one from Beckett's Instagram where I was barely visible in the background, was all over the news. They'd even found my Columbia graduation photo, the one my parents never knew existed. Jennifer had left 17 messages. Not about the scandal, she was too professional for that. About work. Clients wanting meetings. The board wanting statements. My entire carefully constructed professional life suddenly under scrutiny. I spent 3 days in damage control mode. Lawyers to ensure I wasn't legally culpable. I wasn't. Miranda had been thorough in her frame job. PR consultants to manage the narrative. Statements carefully crafted to say nothing while implying everything. Mr. Mitchell became aware of irregularities and felt morally obligated to act. Family loyalty cannot supersede legal and ethical obligations. Mr. Mitchell is cooperating fully with authorities. On the 4th day, they came. Not the FBI or journalists. My parents. The doorman called up, his voice uncertain. "Mr. Mitchell? There's a Harold and Patricia Mitchell here to see you. They say they're your parents, but they're not on your approved list. Send them up." I don't know why I said yes. Curiosity, maybe. Or that small, stupid part of me that still hoped for something recognition, maybe. Acknowledgement. An apology. They looked smaller in my apartment. Diminished. My father's eyes went immediately to the view, calculating the cost. My mother clutched her purse like a shield. "So," my father said finally, "this is how you live. Not how could you or why did you or even we're sorry. Just an observation, tinged with accusation. Would you like coffee?" I offered. "We're not here for coffee." My mother's voice was sharp. "We're here for answers." "To what questions? How long?" My father moved to the window, his back to me. "How long have you been lying to us?" I almost laughed. Which lie are we talking about? The college I actually attended? The job I actually have? The life I actually built while you were pretending I didn't exist? "We never," my mother started. "You never what? Never ignored me? Never dismissed everything I achieved? Never made it crystal clear that I was an inconvenience while Beckett was the prince?" "That's not fair," she said. But even she didn't sound convinced. "Fair?" Now I did laugh. "Was it fair when you threw away my MIT acceptance letter? Was it fair when you missed my high school graduation because Beckett had a hangover you called the flu? Was it fair when you told me to know my limitations while funding every one of Beckett's failures? Beckett is in prison because of you." My father turned, his face red with rage. "Beckett is in prison because he's a criminal, because he committed fraud, because he lied and stole and built his entire life on deception. You could have warned us. You could have helped him, like you helped me." Silence fell, heavy and final. My mother sat on my couch, my Italian leather couch that cost more than they'd ever spent on me in 18 years, and started crying. Not the dramatic tears she'd deployed at the estate. Real tears. Ugly tears. "We lost everything," she whispered. "The house is being seized. The cars. The accounts. Everything we built. Everything Beckett stole, you mean? He's our son. So am I." She looked at me then. Really looked at me. Maybe for the first time in my life. "We don't even know you," she said. "No," I agreed. "You don't." My father straightened his tie, a gesture I recognized. He was about to make a business proposition. Even now, even here, he thought he could negotiate. "You have money," he said. "Real money. From the look of things. You could help us. Not Beckett, I understand that bridge is burned. But your mother and I, we're victims in this too. You could." "No. You haven't even heard. I don't need to. The answer is no. We're your parents, are you?" I stood, moving to the door. Because parents know their children. Parents celebrate their successes. Parents love unconditionally. You were Beckett's parents. I was just someone who lived in your house. "That's not true," my mother said. But she was looking at the floor. "Name one thing about me. One real thing. Not my job. Not my school. Something about who I am." Silence. My favorite color. The music I listen to. The books I read. Anything. More silence. "I'll tell you something about me," I said, opening the door. "I'm someone who survived you. Who thrived despite you. Who became everything you said I couldn't be. And I did it all without you." "Kai, please." My mother stood, reaching for me. "Miranda Harrington's trust fund," I said suddenly. "The one that saved her. Do you know why her grandmother set it up that way? Separate from the family money?" They stared at me, confused by the change in topic. "Because she knew that family wealth comes with family strings, family control, family toxicity. She wanted to ensure Miranda could walk away if she needed to." I held the door open wider. "I didn't have a trust fund, but I had something better. I had the ability to make myself invisible to you, to disappear into my own life while you focused on your golden child. You're really going to let us lose everything?" My father's mask finally slipped, showing the desperation underneath. "I'm not letting you do anything. You made your choices. You bet everything on Beckett, over and over and over. This is just the last bet coming due." They left without another word. My mother looked back once, and in her eyes, I saw something that might have been regret. Or maybe just self-pity. I'd never been good at reading her. I closed the door and stood there for a moment, waiting to feel something. Guilt. Maybe. Sadness. Relief. Instead, I felt nothing. They were strangers who'd knocked on my door, asking for money. Nothing more. My phone buzzed. "Jennifer, the Times wants an exclusive. They're offering significant money for your story." I thought about it. My story. The neglected son who exposed the golden child. The family whistleblower who chose justice over blood. "Tell them no," I texted back. "I'm not for sale." But even as I sent it, I knew that wasn't entirely true. We're all for sale, in one way or another. The only question is the price. And mine had already been paid, in full, over 28 years of neglect. 6 months later, I was in Tokyo for a conference when the news broke. Beckett had made a deal. Testimony against Harold Harrington and 3 others in exchange for a reduced sentence. 3 years instead of 10, minimum security instead of federal prison. The golden boy had found a way to shine, even in handcuffs. My phone immediately lit up with calls from reporters wanting comments. I ignored them all and went to the hotel bar. It was 3 in the afternoon, but time zones are just social constructs anyway. "Kai Mitchell?" I turned. A woman stood there, mid-40s, elegant, vaguely familiar. "I'm Sandra Harrington." "Miranda's aunt." I tensed, waiting for accusations, threats, maybe a drink thrown in my face. Instead, she smiled and sat down beside me. "Relax. I'm the black sheep of the family. Haven't spoken to Harold in years. I just wanted to thank you for destroying your family, for revealing what it really was. A house of cards. A con game. Harold had been running schemes since we were kids. It was only a matter of time before it collapsed." "And Miranda?" Sandra laughed. "Miranda's in New York. Got her book deal, just like she predicted. Movie rights, too. She's playing the victim beautifully. Oscar-worthy, really. She's not a victim. None of us are. We're all just players in the game." She ordered a whiskey. "Neat. You know, she asked me to give you a message if I ever ran into you." "Oh?" "She said to tell you that the wedding happened after all. Just not the one anyone expected." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "The marriage of truth and consequences," she called it. Very poetic. Very Miranda. Sandra raised her glass. "To unintended unions." We drank in silence for a moment. Then she said, "Your brother's testimony. It's going to destroy more than just Harold. The entire Harrington empire will crumble. Every family connected to us will be investigated, including the Mitchells, especially the Mitchells. Your parents' financial fraud, all those years of pretending to have money they didn't have, it's all coming out." I thought about my parents, probably in their empty house, waiting for the FBI to knock again. They'd spent so long constructing their facade of success that they'd forgotten what was real and what was performance. "Can I ask you something?" Sandra said. "Do you regret it? Destroying your family?" "I didn't destroy them. I just stopped propping them up." She nodded slowly. "The hardest thing about being the black sheep is realizing that the flock was never worth following in the first place." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but something made me look. It was a photo. Beckett in an orange jumpsuit, sitting across from men in suits. FBI agents. Probably. His face was gaunt, his golden hair dull and unkempt, but his eyes were the same, still calculating, still scheming, still convinced he was the smartest person in the room. The message underneath read, "Your brother just implicated you in a new scheme. Might want to lawyer up. A friend." I showed it to Sandra. She whistled low. The golden boy's still trying to shine. "Let him try," I said, deleting the message. "I've got receipts for every moment of my life for the past 10 years. Every job, every payment, every hour accounted for. I learned long ago to document everything when you come from a family of liars. Smart. Necessary." She finished her drink and stood. "Word of advice? Miranda's book comes out next month. Chapter 12 is about you. Should I be worried? You should be flattered. She called you the only honest person in a room full of thieves." She paused, though she also called you tragically naive for not taking more money when you had the chance. After she left, I sat there thinking about that. The money I could have taken, the revenge I could have enacted, the ways I could have twisted the knife. But that would have made me like them. And the greatest revenge I could have on my family was simple, being nothing like them at all. My phone rang. "Jennifer, sorry to bother you in Tokyo, but there's something you should know. Someone's been calling the office, says he's your brother, says it's urgent. If he calls again, tell him the truth." "Which is?" "That I don't have a brother. I never did." I hung up and ordered another drink. Outside the window, Tokyo sprawled in all its neon glory, a city that knew how to hide its darkness behind bright lights. Just like families, I thought. Just like golden boys and their shadows. 3 months after that, I got the final call. My father had died. "Heart attack," my mother said through tears. The stress, the shame, the loss, it had all been too much. "The funeral is Thursday," she said. "I know things are complicated, but you're still his son." "No," I said quietly. "I was never his son. I was just someone who shared his DNA. Kai, please. I have nothing left. No one left. Beckett can't come. He's still in prison. It would just be me there, alone." I thought about that. My mother, standing alone at the grave of a man who'd bet everything on the wrong son. There was poetry in it. Justice, even. "I'll send flowers," I said and hung up. The flowers I sent were lilies. White ones. The same flowers they'd sent to my college graduation, the one they didn't attend, with a card that said, "Sorry, we couldn't make it. Family emergency." There had been no emergency. Beckett had wanted to go to a Lakers game, and they'd driven him to Los Angeles instead. My card to my father's funeral said simply, "Sorry, I couldn't make it." No signature was necessary. She'd know who they were from. Later, I heard from Sandra Harrington that my mother had stood alone at the funeral, holding those lilies, finally understanding what it felt like to be invisible, forgotten, dismissed. The golden boy was in prison. The patriarch was dead. The family fortune was gone. The shadow son had become the only one left standing. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No regret. No closure. Just the same emptiness I'd carried for 28 years. Except now I understood it wasn't emptiness at all. It was freedom. Freedom from their expectations, their disappointments, their conditional love that was never really love at all. I changed my phone number that day, deleted my social media, told Jennifer to reject any calls from anyone named Mitchell. I wasn't running from my past. I was just finally accepting what had always been true. I had no family. I never had. I was, and had always been, alone. And for the first time in my life, that felt like victory. The last I heard, my mother was living with her sister in Arizona, working as a receptionist at a dental office. Beckett was released after 18 months for good behavior, only to be immediately arrested again for a new scheme he'd started in prison. And Miranda Harrington became a best-selling author and motivational speaker, teaching women how to escape toxic relationships and reclaim their power. She sent me a signed copy of her book. The inscription read, "To the only honest thief I ever met. You stole your life back. Congratulations." I kept the book but never read it. Some stories aren't meant to be revisited. Some shadows are better left in the dark. Some families are better off destroyed. And some sons were never really sons at all. They were just strangers who happened to be born into the wrong house, to the wrong people, at the wrong time. And the best thing they could ever do was exactly what I did. Walk away. Never look back. And build something better from the ashes of what never really was.